We come to this time and to this place to rediscover the wondrous gift of this free religious community, to renew the faith and the holiness, the goodness, and the beauty of life, to reaffirm the way of the open mind and of the full heart, to rekindle the flame of memory and hope, and to rekindle the vision of an earth made fair and all her people one. Come, friends, let us worship together. Well, please rise in body and spirit for our opening hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In, which is number 361 in your gray hymnal. Now I would invite Dewey forward to share with us the morning's poem.
Hello again. This poem is Whose Are You by Reverend Bob Janice Dillon. I belong to my alarm clock and the 6 a.m. shuffle that since my childhood has been a queer calling. I belong to the coffee machine and the aroma of the Sierra Nevada highlands that I have only seen with others' eyes and hands. I belong to busyness and the founding myth of the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I am counted by the businessman in the stars. Yet more precisely, I am owned by the clouds who bring down the rivers of life. I belong to the clouds who bring succor to the hearts in the evening. I belong to snake shedding her skin and the infinite miracle of the tadpole. I belong to the shuttle where my grandmother spun. I belong to the nameless ones on my left, to the faceless ones on my right. I am carried by forces that are no longer capable of being described, but are, within the several spheres, as alive as you and me. My neighbor and my very soul lies bleeding in the gutter. My neighbor and my very soul arises from the dirt in a different form and foreign to me. The tiniest of bugs, my own future, within the cradle of their antenna. The banyan deer is my master and teacher. I am a follower of the rising of the corn, rising like a helix around the beans and squash before the plants come to fruition. I am not. I belong to the nothingness that predates me and gives me form, and to the clouds that kiss me every day, whether I notice or not, and I belong to you, dear piece of the stars. what would you have of me? Thank you.
Thank you, Dewey. Well, this year at our annual Unitarian Universalist gathering at General Assembly in Portland, Oregon, as thousands and thousands of weary UUs traveled great distances all across the country to come together, to be together, to talk together, to share meals together, to hold one another in love, I kept hearing a common refrain: why church? I heard this over and over from burned out colleagues, many of which resigned over the last 2 years. I heard this from friends who were just exhausted. Why church? For after 2.5 years, where so much of what we have loved about church in different ways had fallen apart. During this strange time when we worshiped remotely, when coffee hour was a thing of the past, when we weren't allowed to sing together, when hugging one another, hugging your good friend wasn't safe. So many of us have felt disillusioned about this thing called church. Perhaps some of you have felt the same. So many of us have asked that question, why church? When so many of the reasons that got us out of bed on a Sunday morning to worship together had fallen away. Or there are many other things we could be doing with this time. We have that Sunday morning crossword puzzle to do. There are gardens to tend, friends to call, soccer games to take our children to. There are chores that we need to catch up on, and of course there's sleep. So much sleep to catch up on. So why church? Why bother? What is it about this place, about this time, about this space that continues to call to us? Why do we make space in our lives to be together each Sunday morning? Why do you show up? Why did you show up this Sunday morning? There are a million other things you could be doing instead. I've asked many of you, why church? Many of you have given me different answers, thought deeply about the question, wondered what brings you back again and again. And often the thing I hear, whether you use this word or not, is a sense of belonging. That here you are surrounded by folks who understand you, folks who care about you, who love you, folks who really get you. But also, over the past few years, many of you have developed a different relationship with this thing called church. For many of you, church is not found here on Sunday mornings. But instead, it's found during that afternoon of weeding and raking with friends here on the church grounds. For some of you, that's church. For some, church is marching on the steps of the State House and advocating for our UU values of justice and equity to be found more fully in our public policy. For others, church is bringing a meal to someone who's sick, someone who's grieving, someone who is struggling to simply remember that they are loved. For many of you, that is church. For if the past 2.5 years have taught us anything, it's that church is not this building. Simply not this 1 hour we spend together on Sunday morning. Church, of course, is so much more than that. Yesterday, as Bill mentioned, we had our church leadership retreat. It was right outside here on the meeting house lawn here in front of the pond. And the facilitator asked us to think about some times in the past that are highlights in the life of the church. There were so many past events that came up for us. The pizza game nights, the Intergen Solstice service we do every December, the holiday stroll, small suppers where we get together and enjoy one another's company, the wonderful yard sale that happened this last April, the Pride event from this past June. There were so many events that people brought up. But over and over, folks talked about times when they felt a deep sense of connection, of belonging, of being with folks who truly cared about them. For that is something that, as you know, can be very hard to find in this world of ours. And friends, I think that is truly what church is all about. That is what gets us out of bed on a Sunday morning. It's what gets us to that Wednesday night long committee meeting that goes on and on. It's what has us pick up that rake and hoe on a Saturday morning to do what needs to be done. Connection, belonging, trust, a deep, abiding love that we're all a part of. So as we begin this new church year together, I would ask that each of you think about what is most important to you about this community. What do you most value about being together? What areas are you willing to give of your own time and talents? And how can we better support you and nourish you on your spiritual journey? For friends, no matter what the future holds, no matter what comes this church year, because we've seen it all, you can rest assured knowing we'll all be doing it together. And for that, I am so eternally grateful. Amen.